This podcast includes content created using artificial intelligence tools. All information is for general purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or regulatory advice. Listeners should verify information independently and consult qualified professionals for personalized guidance. Welcome to the Luxembourg Fundcast. Before we continue, we'd like to mention that the Luxembourg Fundcast is created and produced by Bertrand Mariot, a practicing regulatory lawyer admitted to the Luxembourg and Paris bars. The mission of this podcast is to bring clear, free, and reliable information sourced from official references that are carefully curated and continually updated and refined through high-standard, evolving prompt and context engineering on Luxembourg's financial regulation and investment funds to professionals and anyone interested in the Luxembourg Financial Center. Okay, so we're recording this deep dive today, November 3rd, 2025, and our focus, well, it has to be the new EU AMLCFT package. If you're a gatekeeper in the Luxembourg fund industry, you'll know this isn't just another update. It's fundamental, a complete re-engineering of duties. Probably the biggest structural overhaul we've seen in a generation, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And it's really important we get past the headlines, the sort of high-level summaries. We need to focus on what this actually means on the ground, day to day. So our mission today really is to dissect the practical operational impacts, the earthquakes, as you call them, especially for the legal and corporate secretarial teams, the ones juggling cross-border work right here in Luxembourg.
Right. Let's set the stage then. If you take away only 3 things from our chat today, make it these. They really define this new compliance world. First one, the end of passive reliance. It's a big shift. Compliance isn't just collecting paper anymore. It's about active verification, continuous risk management.
Active and continuous. Second point, and this one's got a ticking clock, the 14-day discrepancy rule. Find a mismatch between your data and the central register. You've got 14 calendar days to report it, period.
14 days, no wiggle room there. Okay, and third,
a two-way street of verification. Think about national registers, like our LBR here in Luxembourg. They're not just passive databases anymore. They're getting powers to actually verify the information you send them. They'll even be screening against sanctions lists.
So the register talks back now, essentially. It's feeding intelligence into your risk assessment.
Exactly. It's a dynamic loop. What's on the register directly impacts you.
Okay, lots to unpack there. Before we dive into those deadlines, maybe let's look at the why, the big picture. We used to rely on AML directives, which, well, cause some issues, right? Friction between countries. So this big shift to a regulation. Why is that specific change such a game changer for finance professionals here?
Well, it all comes down to fragmentation. Directives needed to be transposed into national law. That meant delays, different interpretations. Frankly, it created loopholes. Regulatory arbitrage.
Right. Companies could potentially shop around for the easiest interpretation.
Precisely. The solution is this new anti-money laundering regulation, the AMLR. That's Regulation EU 2024-1624. And the key difference, a regulation is directly applicable, binding, on the same day, everywhere in the EU. It cuts out that whole national implementation step, gives us the single rule book people have talked about for ages.
So for a hub like Luxembourg dealing with all this cross-border business,
it simplifies things in one way. You aim for one EU standard, but it also raises the bar significantly, because now we're directly subject to the single, harmonized, and probably most stringent EU standard, no buffers.
Makes sense. Okay, let's get to the core of it all. Beneficial ownership. BO. I mean, AML only really works if you know who ultimately owns and controls an entity, right? So what's new in how the AMLR defines this?
Yeah, the AMLR does bring some needed clarity here. The threshold we all know, the 25% or more of shares, voting rights, ownership interest that stays. But the critical change is in the method, how you test for BO. The AMLR is very explicit. The 2 ways to identify a BO ownership interest and control via other means they must be assessed independently of and in parallel to each other.
Independently and in parallel. Okay. That sounds deliberately aimed at complex structures.
It absolutely is. It's saying you can't just do the math on ownership percentage and stop there.
So for alternative funds, which are often inherently complex, what does this mean practically?
It means you need a much deeper dive. A qualitative analysis, really. You have to look beyond the numbers. Think about the general partner's power, influence from advisory committees, specific rights hidden away in side letters, or complex governance docs.
Right. It demands real experience in reading those fund documents, understanding where the actual power lies, not just the percentage points.
Exactly. It's less about arithmetic, more about a legally grounded analysis of control and influence.
Okay, so that's the who. Now let's talk operational earthquakes. This single rule book, It changes things right from day one of a client relationship, doesn't it? Onboarding.
It does. Article 23.4 of the AMLR. This is a big one. It introduces a mandatory requirement. Obliged entities, like fund administrators, shall collect valid proof of registration, or a recently issued excerpt from the relevant BO register, like the LBR, when starting any new business relationship.
Shall collect. So no longer optional or just a secondary check. The register excerpt becomes a primary KYC document.
Precisely. It shifts from being a nice-to-have confirmation to a mandatory foundational piece of KYC.
Operationally. That means you need systems, workflows right now, doesn't it? To reliably get these excerpts, timestamp them, archive them properly for every single new client.
Yes, absolutely. Auditable trails are key. And it's not just a one-way street. The registers are changing too. The 6th AML directive, AMLD 6, that's Directive EU 22/2034/640, gives national registers real teeth.
Teeth, how so? What can the LBR actually do now?
Well, they're no longer just passive mailboxes for data. They're empowered to actively verify what's submitted. They can ask for supporting documents from the company. They can even conduct on-site inspections.
On-site inspections, wow.
And crucially, they now have an obligation to screen their data against targeted financial sanctions list, the whole database.
So the register is actively checking for sanctions hits, and if it finds one. Or if someone else reports a discrepancy.
A flag goes up publicly on the register entry. Think of it like a warning signal visible to anyone looking up that company.
Which seriously ramps up the stakes if your internal records don't match what the LBR is showing publicly. Reputational risk skyrockets.
Exponentially. And regulatory risk too, of course.
And that public flag connects directly to that other point, the really sharp deadline, the 14-day discrepancy rule. So you spot an inconsistency, your data versus the LBR data. What happens next?
The clock starts immediately. You have to report that discrepancy without undue delay, and in any case, within 14 calendar days of spotting it.
14 calendar days, that's right.
It's incredibly tight. And it demands a rock-solid internal process, formal, tested. You need clear triggers for detection, a rapid process for investigation. Is it a real issue? Talk to the client. Then, meticulous documentation of everything. And finally, a smooth reporting mechanism to the LBR.
And the consequences if you do report a discrepancy, what happens then?
AMLD 6 is clear on this. A specific mention. Basically, that public flag of uncertainty gets put on the register listing instantly.
Instantly. And it stays there until the whole thing is sorted out.
That's right. Visible to everyone.
Ouch. I could see how that would cause problems. Other banks, counterparties seeing that flag, they might just pause everything, right? Transactions blocked.
Very likely. It's a real potential blocker, which means managing that isn't just a compliance task anymore. You need a proper, probably senior-level client communication strategy to handle the fallout and push for a quick resolution with the LBR. It's serious business.
Definitely sounds like it. Now, bringing this back to Luxembourg specifically, these EU rules aren't happening in a vacuum, are they? They seem to tie into Luxembourg's own identified risks.
Yes, that's a key point. They align very closely with the findings from Luxembourg's 2025 National Risk Assessment, the NRA. That's coordinated by the Ministry of Justice. The NRA points to foreign predicate offenses, crimes committed abroad, generating illicit funds as the main threat, and the main vulnerability. The potential misuse of legal persons, companies, and crucially legal arrangements.
Legal arrangements, meaning complex fund structures, essentially.
Exactly. And the NRA is blunt about it. It rates legal arrangements as having the highest level of risk, both inherent and residual risk.
So by properly implementing this enhanced BO verification we've been talking about, a fund administrator isn't just ticking an EU box.
No, they're directly tackling the country's single biggest identified AML vulnerability. It's strategic compliance, not just rule following.
And I assume the CSSF will be watching this very closely.
You can bet on it. This will absolutely be front and center in their annual financial crime questionnaire, and a major focus during on-site visits. They'll want to see that firms aren't just compliant on paper, but have genuinely operationalized strategic risk management around this.
It feels like we're building towards a kind of three-dimensional view of risk.
That's a good way to put it. You've got customer due diligence, screening the investors, then you have this enhanced BO verification under the AMLR, screening the ultimate beneficial owners. And then, layered on top, asset due diligence, screening the assets themselves, which the CSSF emphasized back in December 2024.
So firms need systems and processes that can handle all three dimensions concurrently: investor, owner, asset.
Precisely. It's a multi-layered approach.
Okay, let's talk timing. When does all this actually bite?
Well, The new EU body, the Anti-Money Laundering Authority, or AMLA, that actually became operational back on July 1st, 2025. But the main event, the date, everything needs to be fully up and running for the AMLR, and the deadline for transposing AMLD 6 into national law. That's July 10th, 2027.
July 2027. So roughly a 2-year window from now.
Yes, but that window isn't for waiting. It's for doing. It's a time for rewriting policies, yes, but also designing and testing new systems, training staff on completely new workflows, even amending client agreements to reflect these active duties.
It's a significant lead time needed for major operational changes.
Absolutely. And we also need to keep an eye on AMLA. They're tasked with developing the really granular detail through technical standards, RTS regulatory technical standards, and ITAS implementing technical standards. We already saw the EBA consulting on draft RTS earlier this year, back in early 2025.
Right, so the high-level law is there, but the nitty-gritty operational rules are still being finalized by AMLA.
Exactly. Which means the smart approach now is to build flexibility into your new processes. Monitor how those RTS and ITAS are developing. Don't build something so rigid now that you have to rip it all out and start again when the final technical specs land. That would be costly.
Very costly, I imagine. So flexibility and keeping an eye on AMLA's output is key for the next 2 years.
Definitely. And looking even further ahead, the direction of travel is pretty clear, isn't it?
Seems like it. What's the ultimate end game here?
Well, you've got the single rule book, these newly empowered national registers, mandatory discrepancy reporting. It all points towards a much more integrated, data-driven European system. Think interconnected national registers, a pan-European data ecosystem for AML.
So the quality of a firm's AML data here in Luxembourg, it's not just a local issue for the CSSF anymore.
Not at all. It becomes a data point in a much larger European picture.
That's a profound shift. The era of purely national, siloed compliance data sounds like it's well and truly over.
I think that's the final takeaway, yes.
Yeah.
It's over. So just to quickly recap the core operational shifts we've discussed. First, the end of passive reliance, you need active, ongoing verification. Second, the 14-day discrepancy rule, that hard 2-week reporting deadline, non-negotiable. And third, a two-way street of verification. Remember, the registers now verify and provide intelligence, carrying potential reputational risk.
Excellent summary. A lot for our listeners to think about and, more importantly, act on. This podcast is a collaborative and free resource that improves continually, so your comments or requests for new topics are highly welcome, especially on YouTube. We want to be a helpful strength for everyone working in the Luxembourg Financial Center at all levels. We are often asked how you can help us. Well, a great way to help is by subscribing to our shows on all major podcast platforms, including Spotify, as well as on Apple Podcasts, where a 5-star rating would really help us. You can also like our videos and subscribe to our YouTube channels, Rigor Media and Bertrand Mario Avocats. We also invite you to follow or connect with Bertrand Mario on LinkedIn and to like and comment on our posts there. All relevant links will be available in the show notes. For our French-speaking listeners, you can also find our sister podcast in French. It was the Luxembourg Fundcast for you today. This podcast includes content created using artificial intelligence tools. All information is for general purposes only and does not constitute financial, investment, legal, or regulatory advice. Listeners should verify information independently and consult qualified professionals for personalized guidance.